Hi, everybody. Hi.
Hey, yo.
Welcome to the first episode of our podcast. It's called Lady Bandtits. And I'm super excited because I get to do it with my friend. And I'm excited for what this is going to become and what we're looking forward to have people on and talk. And so, yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm Kara, and
I'm KayAnna. And that's Lily.
That's Lily. You might hear her quite often. She is special. Anyways, so first things first. Yeah. KayAnna, do you want to explain what's going on?
Yeah, we are the Lady Bandtits, and we are here to support artists and people who create and play music. Join us for an open chat about life and the creative process and supporting people that we love who are in the industry. So the whole theme of the podcast is being a supportive role, since that's, usually ladies are more that supportive role. So, the idea is to have an open conversation about what that role looks like, especially in behind the music scenes. Like, I'm married to a artist and he has a band, but I'm also band mom. And so just what that looks like, open conversations of just the day-to-day and the relationship and, how it affects and how to create a creative space for him to process and for him to be able to create music and play music and what that looks like. And then also just the day-to-day life and the struggles that, may come to pass. And so, yeah, that's essentially the podcast is to get down to earth to, the creative process and how do we support the people that we love in the industry, or even in just being that role for that process.
Perfect. Yeah, or that process. Yeah. And I mostly, I don't have a significant other in the business, but I do, however, play a heavy role in the local music scene, as I have other ventures that I do as far as interviewing local artists and stuff like that. So it's definitely something that I am very passionate about, and I think it's really awesome that people on the back end, you don't really see them. You don't really see what the work they put in and the being a band mom and all that stuff. You have to there's nobody really says, hey, how's that going for you? And
yeah, your tire blew out on the way to a show. How did you guys do?
Yeah, I figured out. Yeah.
Whose car did you take?
Exactly. Whose stuff did you have to stuff all the band gear in?
Yeah, you're sitting on people's laps. It's like a clown car showing up to a show sometimes.
Exactly. So it's all that kind of stuff, like the back end, that a lot of people don't see and a lot of people don't get a chance to maybe understand. So we want to kind of highlight some of those people and highlight some of those things and talk about it and kind of get down to the deep nitty gritty of really what it is, and give people a backstage pass, so to say, of what it's like. And since I've been on the back end having so many friends be musicians and being able to be backstage consistently and helping with everybody, and then again, she's the, she does all of the the band mom stuff, so she has a better idea of intricacies of a band thing. But I think we both are coming with lots of knowledge in both scenarios and everything, and so I hope you guys will stick with us and come along for the journey of what this turns into and what we're hoping for, and that you just get some fun information about all that kind of stuff. So, and if you have questions or comments or anything, we do have an Instagram. So be sure to check that out. It's the Lady Bandtits Podcast. And we'll be sure to link that below. But yeah, like we are super excited, and yeah, I'm excited to like talk about things and not interview people that are already in it. I want to like interview people that are like around it, get some other perspective.
Going through it, if you
Yeah,
know.
going through it. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
That are not only in it, but in the trenches of it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, the army around it. I also, just to be 100%, because that's what I am. I also am fighting a cold, so you might hear that every now and then.
Yeah,
So,
we're gonna get a couple of verses of Smelly Cat because your
yeah,
voice is just right.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Smelly Cat at the end of the podcast, you know, you can break out your drums and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, smelly cat. No, I'm not gonna sing for y'all. I promise. I won't break your ears.
not that kind of podcast.
No,
Okay.
I promise. There is no music here for me. No way.
Not a vocalist, that's for
No,
sure.
no. I will 100% spare you from having your eardrums blown for that. Yeah.
That's all right. That's all
Yeah.
right. No face singing coming from this podcast for sure.
Yeah, no, we are hopefully not. Yeah. Yeah. If you want
Well,
that,
not from us. Yeah.
it's not from us. We'll let the professionals do that. Yeah, no way. So, I want to kind of get into the just fun stuff about us on this first one. Since we had kind of discussed about like how we were going to do the first one, and so I really want to just like have people get to know us and why we're doing it. I mean, you kind of have the sense of the passion behind it, but I figure what led us to this point and like why it's really important to us individually. So do you want to kind of like get into how you feel about it and like what makes it so personal to you, KayAnna, and why?
Yeah. So, a little background about me. I'm from the state of Oklahoma, but I have moved quite a bit. So, my mom was in the radio business. So, my music, I guess, root comes from like my parents. My dad, he self-taught himself to like play piano like proficiently and classical guitar like he plays by ear. So he makes music. He's a writer, composer of his own music, and it's very unique. It's not like a band type of thing. It's kind of electronic and kind of, I don't know, it's meditative in a sense. So, but anyway, he's always kind of played music. And then my mom, she was an on-air DJ, so she had the chops. She was the personality. So that's probably where I get a lot of my like
Yeah.
joking personality, like, oh hey, So yeah, grew up in Oklahoma. We moved around a lot when I was a kid because my mom was in radio. And so like I don't remember what my first concert was, like I just remember being the tag along,
Yeah.
a single mom, because my mom and dad, they never married, but my mom raised me. And so we traveled in Oklahoma, and then we moved to Nashville for a short season and then came back, and my mom worked in some Christian radio. And then she, as I started getting older, she was like, I need to kind of focus more on being a mom and being around like family. And so, yeah, and I played saxophone in high school, marching band. I was in choir in middle school, but of course that no, I can chat, but I can't. I got traps for other things like eating, but not.
You're withholding that information from me. What the heck?
Yeah, sorry. My bad. Yeah, I don't see.
No, we're not going to have a sample at all.
Nope.
No.
No. Unless it's still recording and I accidentally sing a verse of something, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, so like my passion's always been to support other people's dreams of like
Yeah.
what they want to do. So my mom, um, Lily's over there, squeaker toy.
Lily, come. Sorry, guys. She's still kind of a puppy, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep her occupied. Unfortunately, the other show it was like whatever, but
Yeah.
this one it's more talking, so it's like I try to, but she definitely likes to be involved in everything. She's the mascot of my other show. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just like I love one, music has been one of those outlets that I had to like find for myself, but I like, grew up in like the gospel and like the soul and like classic rock from my mom. She was in country music for years. So it was like I had all these different like assets of like, or access to all these different types of music, and I just come to appreciate the art form of like that creative process, because it is a creative process to be able to write lyrics and then to compose a song, and how it is in your head and then how you get it on paper. So it's like I love to be able to facilitate the space to let the creative process flow. Like I love seeing people excel at what they're good at. And my mom being kind of like a producer and being able to produce a show and pick out those pieces and put it together and make it just sound like really good. I love seeing that. And I love to like facilitate that. And then I married a musician, and it's like, how do I allow him to feel safe enough to create and do all that stuff? Because that's what he loves. And I know that there are things behind it. It's just like, I just want to see people doing what they're good at and supporting. So I think that's really my whole thing behind it. Like, I don't necessarily like to be in the forefront of the show, but I don't mind being like, hey, look at all the hard things that you did. Congratulations. Like, I'm the cheerleader for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I could kind of sympathize with that. Like I've always been the cheerleader too. And what did your family think of you marrying a musician? Like, was it kind of ironic to them?
I don't know. I don't think it's ironic. I think my grandpa played bass for like a really famous country music person, and so like my grandpa is like he's just like has another son that is playing music, and he's so proud. And so last time we were in Oklahoma seeing him, he was sick, but my mom brought her guitar, and my husband like sat down and started playing, and he was just like, the way that he just lit up and like felt better because he just had like a family member to be there and like enjoy. Like, he plays bass at his church now, like my grandpa does. So it's like, it was so good to see how that happens. And my grandpa always asks like, how's my boy? Like, I think for him it was
cute.
It was like a proud moment, because it was just like, I don't know, they connected and related to him. And so like for me to marry someone like who's a musician, like, I don't know, I never personally thought that would be something.
Really interesting.
Like I wanted to marry someone who played music, but not someone who was, like just like casually, but not someone who was like passionate about it, because music's always in my household. Like, if it was worship, if it was gospel, if it was, country or whatever, like it was always in the background. And so it's like I always liked that. But to like desire to be with a musician, no.
Oh my God. I was the opposite. I was like, I want to be with a musician that plays guitar. I want to be that girl. When I was younger, I don't know who it was I saw do it that like made this fantasy in my head. but like I wanted to be the girl that he gets off to and like kisses when he gets off the stage. Like that was like all I wanted. And then to be like in the back being like, "Yay!" And people being like, "Oh, who are you? Why do you like him?" Or whatever. So it was just like I just wanted to be the person that like got to say that I knew him, I guess. But like the same took, because I thought it was like the coolest like role. Like and it's very, now that I've seen it in person, it's very not that way. That was very romanticized. But like I don't know. I think I was like all the way until I was at least 26 when I got really into local music and stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, that's not really how it works. And it gave me like this really big like reality check. And so I realized that it wasn't really like that. But until then, I was like, I want to have a boyfriend and I want him to love me and make music about me and come off the stage and kiss me. Like,
yeah, your fairy tale, like your princess story was never like Cinderella. It was always like something else.
Yeah, it was almost Ariel, but not really. Like if it had switched.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was kind of my my want and desire for a musician, but also because I'm a musician too. So I was like, it would be so cool to have like music fill the house. And like one of my like big music like influences is Taylor Hanson, and he's always playing music. And so I feel like that's just such like a big thing, like to have around children and to always be like, it's always playing, and there's always like family, again, romanticized, family like playing music together and stuff like that. So it was just like this whole thing I had. But lately, I'm kind of like, maybe it would be great not to have somebody in music so that I can kind of have it to myself, I don't know. I'm still on the single stage of like, what the heck do I want? And so I don't know. And with all of my friends having musician husbands or guys having musician girlfriends, I'm like, do I want to be that person anymore?
Yeah, because there's also like that like responsibility to create, and like be in the front, and people are all like, eyes are always like on you, and like what are you gonna do, what are you gonna say, and like it can be very stressful, and it takes away the purity of the enjoyment, I think. And so it's like, it's very hard sometimes to like want that. It's like you want the fame, but you don't want the responsibility of the fame, or whatever it may be, because it's just like there's a lot to it.
Yeah, because it's not just sitting there and watching them play and everything happens. It's and we'll go into this a lot later, and she'll be able to like tell you what goes into it, but I kind of want to save that for a little bit later. But there's a lot more to it than just sitting and watching, which is where my mindset was. And so that's kind of the point behind it all, is that it's not just that romanticization of just like somebody's just sitting and watching, especially if you're a local artist. I don't know about, obviously I don't know any big time people, but I mean, who knows what their other significant others do, but maybe one day we'll have one of them on and we can ask them. But as far as local artists, I know that that's not the case. So yeah,
because there's real life that goes with it.
100% there's real life.
So tell me a little bit more about like where you came from, how you grew up, and what got you into music, because
so I have a pretty extensive music background. Not that you don't, you do too, but I come from like the actual, like, I feel like we're just kind of like in different spots of music. So whereas like I came from like actually playing music in a band, like consistently doing that, to where you were kind of brought along, like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally.
To downgrade what you're saying, but what you've been through. But So I
I
had,
was tag along for
yeah, I feel like that's kind of what it is. Like you're just
yeah.
like tag along. Whereas I was like in it. So like I started playing music. I played flute from 9 until I was 18, and then or 17 really. And then when I was in senior year, I was like, ooh, there's a cute boy in the percussion, and I want to learn how to play drums so I could be cool. so, so I gave up all those years of flute, and it become like really great at it. And uh, I wanted to be in an orchestra. Like that was kind of what I wanted to do. I really thought it was really cool, and that the flute was just so beautiful, and especially like native flute. I kind of wanted to do that too, but I ended up just going sideways and went to doing the drums. And so my grandma put me into like a class, and the first class I brought a song I wanted to learn, and he was like, we got to start at the beginning, hun. I was like, no, let's just go with what this does. He's like, no. So I realized as time went on in my life that that's how I did it. I just jump in at the end, and then I'm like, oh, I can learn the beginning later, like. So I
Who
taught
needs
myself.
technique?
Yeah, who cares? So I do play the drums. I do have a drum set. It was the very first thing I ever bought when I was 16 or 17 for my job, and God, I played that for forever. And then I ended up meeting another friend, the guy that was like that I originally started playing for. He didn't like me, but I ended up making another friend in jazz band, and I was in percussion all through the end of my high school year, as well as dance. And I as a child, I was either going to be a singer or a dancer. Like it was one or the other. So I had like built up that I was going to be Paula Abdul's back dancer or Janet Jackson's back dancer. So
Yeah.
I was a dancer all through my life too. And unfortunately, that didn't happen either. And then at 11 years old, so this is kind of going back, I was like, I'm going to be a marine biologist, and that's all I'm going to do. And so I thought I could do both music and that and put them together, like the music I had heard that my grandma sent me from the native people, and so Native Americans. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Like, I'm going to be a marine biologist, and then I'll play the flute, and it'll be grandioso, right? And then they'll come to me, and everything will be perfect, when you're 11 and everything is, reality hasn't set in yet.
Right. You're still living the fantasy.
Yeah. Are you seeing a trend? Yeah.
Yeah, I see it.
So I was an only kid when I was younger, and it was like I was a kind of a loner. Even though I was really social, I was such a loner. I was kind of a weird kid, and so a lot of people just like, I got beat up a lot. I was bullied. So like music was my like escape a lot of the time. And so by the time I got to my teens, my very first introduction to like loving an actual band rather than like a musician, because I was like 9 and I was in love with Joey Lawrence. But I can't believe I'm admitting that. But yeah, I was in love with him. And then and New Kids on the Block. And New Kids on the Block was like my very first concert I ever went to. And then it's so funny because like he had like his 30th anniversary of his album, Joey Lawrence did, and I actually remembered all of the songs on that freaking album, having not heard them in 30 years.
That's great.
I was like, dang, like what? How? So it just proves to you that like, if you listen to it over and over enough, it'll just stick in your head.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then I just kind of went on to go to a music school out of high school, and learned how to write music there, and learned how to really hone in on playing like the drums and the guitar. I was taught by some of the top musicians in Seattle, Gianni Godinez being one of them, Brian Marshall. And then I wrote my first song at 19, and Brian Marshall put that song on his album that he was just putting out. It just happened to go along with like the theme of his album. And so then I went on a tour with him and got to open for a bunch of artists in the Seattle area. And the last show I ever did Oh yeah, and then in that time too, I was the drummer in like a little punk band, and so I did that for a little while, and that was all before like the Fall Out Boy phase of like emo punk, and then the early 2000s, and then yeah, and then the last show I ever did was I opened at this showbox in downtown Seattle at the Market, which is, if you're in the area, you probably know about it. If you're in the music industry a little bit, it's one of the more famous places. Like Jimi Hendrix played there, and the Go-Go's, and Heart, and all these famous people. Hanson, it's my favorite band. They did.
They're from Oklahoma, you know that, right?
100%, I know that. I drove all the way out there to see them.
I will tell you. So because I was like, little backstory on me too. When I grew up, I was always going to concerts because my mom was doing like the announcements and stuff like that. She was on radio,
Yeah.
so of course she was like introducing the bands in front of people.
Yeah.
Well, I had never gone to a concert that I wanted to go to myself until we lived in Nashville, Tennessee, and my first concert I ever went to was Hanson.
Yes.
And I straight up, I was like, it was a friend took me, and I was like, I love Hanson because they're from Oklahoma, and I lived in Tennessee, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, it was like home, like, I'm home, like, I found like this band that was from my area that I loved, and
yeah. Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, so that was my first ever concert by myself to like enjoy on my own as a spectator instead of being like behind the scenes.
Yeah. Did you get to meet them?
I didn't get to meet them. No, it was I really enjoyed that. Like I was like, I would love to meet them, but at the same time I was also very much like, I don't need to meet them. They're just people, like they're doing their thing. Like, and that was my mom's like outlook. She was always like, if you meet a famous person, they're just a person. Like their job title is just this. And it kept me very humble in meeting people because it wasn't like I was worshiping this person. Like, and I think that was like, I mean, like the idolatry of like, oh my gosh, you're this amazing person. And it's just like, I don't want to put them on this pedestal because it's like, they're just people. We all mess up. Like, I don't want to like burst that bubble of like imagination. It's just like, no, like everybody poops, like, you gotta keep it humble, and it's just like we all make mistakes.
No, they don't. I'm sorry. They are unicorns and nothing like that happens.
Yeah, so that was I had to mention that since it's one of your favorite bands. I was like, yeah, that was my first ever like real concert for myself. I liked being on the outside, just being like, but
yeah. It's so funny because even now, like 30 years later, like they're still my number one favorite band ever, and I've met them 4 times, and they're so accessible. Like they make themselves so accessible because they aren't Beyonce,
Yeah, they're humble, and that's
so humble.
So like that's what I love about like musicians who are humble, who really enjoy being in the fans. And I think we're going to talk more about this in our podcast because like that it's not about them being like uplifted or they're better than anybody else. Like it's very a humble thing. When people can be humble about their music and be appreciative of the people who enjoy it, like that speaks and goes volumes. Like further.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I kind of began the whole like pursuit of music. I think is like really I think I was 14 when they came out in 97, and I was like, I really like love this band, and I'm so in love with Taylor, and like it was 100% just like this, like I love music now, like I can love it and I can be in it and it can be in my life, and so that was kind of the beginning of it. And then but music was like fantastic back then, like 94 to like 2000 was like the best music, I think. And so it really just kind of like in that whole era, I was like, yes, music rocks. And it was really influential for me. And so I just kind of went on with being in that music school, just kind of taking all that music knowledge and going through life. And then I ended up adopting a kid when I was 18. And so I had to do both of them at the same time and work. And that was kind of hard just because it had derailed everything I had planned. And so I ended up just kind of giving music up a little bit, even though I like really found it. It was part of my life. Listening to it at that time in my life was more important, and going to concerts were more important than actually playing it, because I really didn't have any confidence in myself playing it at that point. And then flash forward to like 2000. So I started getting into like 2000 to 2004. I was really into local music. And I went and saw Brandy Carlisle a billion times because she was accessible then. She wasn't famous then. And she didn't get famous till 2004. And then I opened for her at the Showbox in 2003. And that there was just like a plethora of other people back then. Like, I don't know, Alien Crime Syndicate. That's back when Death Cab for Cutie was just coming out. Dashboard Confessional. Who else? God, what was their name? This Providence. They ended up going on to be like on Fall Out Boy's label later on in like 2007. And it was so funny, sidebar, when I first decided to do my show, he was like the second show. So I went to the show for Date Night, which was like a really cool Tense and Date Night. They were like really awesome bands, local bands from Portland. And the guy from the front singer of this Providence was there, and they had been broken up for like 10 years. And I thought he went back to Australia, and he ended up like being there and moved back to Seattle. And I was like, oh my God. And he actually remembered who I was from like 10 years ago because I'd been to so many shows.
Oh, wow.
It was so cool.
Yeah. You're like, that's the part where it's like you have that knowledge of like what it's like to be a regular at shows and like really enjoy the scene that you're in and like the local music that you're in. Cause like I know that you're from Idaho, is that right?
Yeah, I'm originally from Idaho. And then to Seattle when I was really young, like 5.
Yeah, but you like
wow.
you took advantage of like your ability to go see music when you had it available.
Yeah.
Like that's super awesome because it's like a lot of people like in cities or towns or whatever, even if you're in a big city or a small town, like if you're just going to a local somewhere where there's live music, like you're supporting the artist. And that is like, it's so important. And you became regular to a lot of people, which also like a lot of bands, you were supporting people and bands before they were even like big or famous or whatever. You were in the trenches, like being like, I enjoy your music. I love this. This is amazing. And that is so cool because it's such a lost art. Like the appreciation and love that I think musicians don't get nowadays, like in the modern day, like because Spotify or whatever, it's like it's all digital now, but it's like there's something so amazing about just being present. And I think that is a lost art. And so it's like, you know, as we recap like all the shows that like we've been to, or like you being a kind of like a local space in the crowd, like that is huge. Like, that's a part of fandom that I think people don't have nowadays. You know, like we support sports fans and, you know, like sports teams everywhere. And it's just like, yeah, but there are musicians, there are artists that are creating, and the only support they get is online. And sometimes that's just negative support.
Yeah.
And it's like, we need to be present. We need to like show up to shows. Like if you hear a song and you like it, like go hear them live and support the live artist too, because like
Yeah.
I know for like my husband, like we live on an island, so it's like the people who know his band are all locals,
Yeah.
they all know it. And
Yeah.
so it's like when he does go out to like other towns or whatever, like he's like, I hope the local crowd comes. Like I
Yeah.
hope that people from the island
The
show up on the
regulars.
mainland. Like, like we
Yeah.
hope that there's people who like will continue to follow that journey and
Yeah.
be with that musician. I love that. I love that about like your story and how like you you have that like grit of like just being in the crowd and being
Yeah.
part of the show and the making of it, because it's like that's a huge supporting role too. Like fandom is a huge supporting role.
Well, yeah, they couldn't play unless they have any, and it
Right.
was almost obsessive when I got into like my 20s and I was going out all the time and like drinking and stuff. It was the whole thing I did, and it was in my later 20s, and I mean, it was just night after night after night. We would see Ellen Says No. Ellen Says No became one of my very favorite ever bands. Like they back then that I went to, I think they had like 5 shows a week, and I went to at least 4 of them. You know, so it's so fun to like. I think that's where I found the love. Honestly, is being able to just be present and for them to see us singing the music back and them thinking that like, oh, nobody knows the words to our music, and being able to have that was before like local artists started actually putting out CDs and stuff, and so they were just playing.
Mhm.
And so we were encouraging them. I was like, I want to have this music in my truck. How can I have that music? Are you going to put it on an album? Like, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
And so that's when there was like this whole talk of like, oh, maybe we should sell merch and all of that kind of stuff. So but yeah, I mean 2007 2008 was like huge for local music, and I think that's when it really started to kind of pop off and people really understand that like everybody, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, everybody started from that place, and
Mhm.
all these bigger bands had to start somewhere. Fall Out Boy,
Yeah.
all of them, they all started. Hanson started in Tulsa doing that at
Garage
festivals.
bands. Yeah.
Yeah, and so not everybody goes on to be famous, but
Right.
they can be famous in their area. And
Mhm.
so I knew so many artists that's why I started really focusing on it, because I was like, I know all these people, and it's a shame nobody gets to see all these people, and it's a shame that like nobody gives them more credit or goes to their shows or whatever. And I started feeling like I was the only one kind of hyping and being that hype person behind everybody, and so I just started a podcast, or it wasn't a podcast till later, but I just started doing a show. It's called The Local Music Scene, and that's where the passion just kind of really took off, and where I really started writing too. I started meeting musicians that were really awesome, and so that inspired me to write more music too. And then my friend Barrett, it was like 2000, I don't know, 15, 14, something like that. He was playing with Dakota Portman, and I got to like travel for the summer with Dakota, well, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a month, I don't know, and with Dakota Portman, and that was awesome and so much fun. And like that's when I started really being involved, and my friends started going, oh, well, why are you going partying every night or every weekend? And I'm like, I'm not partying. I wasn't really drinking. I would just go to see the show and sit down and watch it. And so my close people around me were like, I don't understand why you're being such a party person. And so my show was kind of the answer to that. Like, fine, if you think I'm partying, I'm just going to start a show and be like, this is the reason why I'm doing it. But then it ended up really actually being what I love, and what I started doing were as an answer and a justification as to why I'm doing what I'm doing, which back then I felt like I needed, because I got tired of everybody getting on me about it.
Yeah.
And it'd be like your point to like sports. It'd be like somebody saying, "Oh, I'm gonna go to like the college basketball game every weekend." You know, it was like that kind of a thing, and I chose music. You
That
know,
was your sport. Yeah.
and so it was like, why is everybody getting on me about this? And so I got tired of it, and so I was like, fine, I'll just start a show, and that'll give me a reason. And lo and behold, everybody got off my back about it because they were like, oh, that makes much more sense. You need to have people on your show. So that was kind of like, all right, whatever, like, sure. But it ended up turning into leading me to where I am now with doing this show with KayAnna and being able to have all these opportunities open. And the martial law band became really pivotal in the beginning of doing that show. They brought me everywhere. I got to go to Hawaii with them. Like, I got to do a whole bunch of stuff with them, and I'm not even trying to like name drop, but they really did. They supported everything I did, and were right there. Like, hey, this person's doing good in the scene. Let's support that. And Jade and Luke and Hallie Gregg, who were both on The Voice, they were right there behind it, being on my show constantly too. And there was a lot of people in that first year that came on consistently to keep my show going. One of the artists was Nick Isham. He was on every single month at the end of the month for like 3 years, and he just gave up, like, I think last March or something, or last October, I don't know, September. And he was like, I'm getting bigger. I can't like be on every single day, every single month anymore. I'm too busy. And I was like, all right, cool, go be famous. See you later.
Thanks for just don't forget the little people.
Yeah, I literally told him that. I was like, don't forget me. I'm just little. And so yeah, it was so fun. But it's cool being like that. Having people like that on, and seeing where all these people go in the next 10 years. And if like they end up becoming huge, then I've been able to have them on my show when they weren't that huge, and they're humble, and they're still, not that nobody isn't, but like some people don't turn out to be humble. But like, for real, let's just be honest.
Fame and yeah, it can change you for the good.
I've met plenty. I've met lots. I've met so many famous musicians, and I can honestly tell you that I would say 3/4 of them, not even humble. They're like, oh yeah, I'm famous. Thanks for coming by. Like.
To go back to what I said about like people who remember like Hanson, and like my husband, I know I see him out in the crowds after a show or before a show. Like he, like people who humble themselves and be like, we do it because of the fact that you guys enjoy it and we enjoy it, and we get to be able to love you in this process. There's something about that. It's like,
it really is. Yeah.
And I think that also it just makes the music better because it's personal, right? Like it's like, I can talk to this person, like they're real, they're honest, like they're not too proud or high and mighty to shake your hand or say, hey, thanks for coming. Like, it means a lot to a lot of people. So,
and that's, I think, the thing that like sets apart from the famousness of being a local band and the crossing that boundary into being, or that line of being actually like famous. I have a friend that a couple friends that are a duo, and they signed with a local in Nashville, a local label, but they're still the most humble people ever. They still come every time they come to Washington. Like, they're like, hey, like, are you coming to the show? And can't wait to see you in the crowd, and we'll get you in early, whatever. And so I love that when they can still cross that line and still be humble. Still be appreciative of those people who were there in the beginning and were able to really support them before that happened. And that's where I think a lot of local artists, I find that a lot of them like the freedom of being able to do it full time and also stay stay in the scene, and stay maybe famous within the scene. Like your guys' band is, or your husband's band is, like
It's
kind of.
Don't tell him I said that. He'll probably be like, "Oh my gosh, it's
He's
not her."
definitely not going to hear that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, right. Sorry, babe.
Yeah. So like it's definitely one of those things where like you guys are pretty famous on the island, and so I enjoy it when they are big enough that they can produce a lot of people behind them, but also small enough that they're still able to talk to their fans and talk to people and still have fun.
Well, I will say it's not a full-time band. Like it's, and it's hard because it's like everybody has like their own jobs, like, so it's not like music doesn't pay,
It
like,
really does.
Like, and especially in this day and age where like it's all social media, it's all digital. And so it's like there's a lot of things that it's like if you're an independent artist or even an independent band from like a production company in itself, like if you think about it, they all get their cuts. And so it's like for an independent artist to actually make money, this is it. They have to love it, because if you don't love being an artist, you're not going to get the reward that you're looking for. If you're looking for money, if you're looking for fame or success, like if you're not doing it for love, you're not doing it properly, I think, in my opinion, because it's just like one of those things where it's like, this is a representation. This is what you have gone through and how you process and how you express yourself. So you're putting yourself in a vulnerable situation, and people may or may not like it. But then also a lot of people don't pay for it. Like one of the things that my husband, like the theme of the band sometimes is because they do play on island quite a bit, and a lot of people know them. They're one of their slogans is most played, least paid. And it's true. Like
it's so true. Yeah.
It's like, they play weddings, they've played, just like a little events at bars or whatever it may be, and haven't gotten a cent, and they just do it for the love of it. And I know that there's also that frustration because it's just like we're creating art, and yet the art doesn't feel appreciated because nobody's paying for it.
Yeah, the value, nobody sees the value. And that's the thing that like I also wanted to do that show for, is because I'm like, look, there is value to this.
Yeah.
I understand they're local and you might think they're a garage band, but they're not. They actually are putting in the effort. They're making songs, they're practicing, they make sure the show is good. I'm gonna sneeze.
Bless. That's a smelly cat sickness happening.
Yeah, man. And I was trying to hold it off for so long.
It's okay.
And so so like it's just one of those things where like you can't put a value on something that comes from within yourself. And unfortunately for local artists, there has to be a value because it's your time, it's your effort, it's your
dedication, discipline, all of it.
Yeah, all of it. And you have to work as a team. Yeah. And so it's something that like I wanted to put on the map too in the last 5 years of, look, this is important. You guys need to go out and support your local artists and support these people that are actually doing fucking amazing. Like there shouldn't be a reason why on a Friday night you're like, oh, I got nothing to do. Go see a band. Half of these bands that I've seen, I've never heard of until I went and saw them or they were on my show. Like, I try and see every band that's on my show, but one, I have them international, so that's kind of hard. Two, they're national as well, so that's kind of hard. And if they're in Seattle, heck yeah, I'll go see them, like, because it's important. It's important to be able to be like, yes, I support you on my show, but yes, I support you in person, and I'm going to at least come one show, and see how good they are. If they are great, how good they are in person. Now, granted, every single question I get after that is, have you ever had any shitty bands? And yes, there have been some where I'm like, thanks for coming.
Not my cup of tea, but they're doing the thing. Yeah.
their thing. It's not my thing, but
Yeah, yeah.
I support regardless.
It's an
So
expression of art. Like it's,
yeah, and what their art doesn't. I mean, and that's the thing with music is it's universal, and it's like a universal language, and it can go through many people. And if it's not my cup of tea, maybe it's yours, and so that's fine. Like I do not like the like screamo metal. It just my ears can't handle it. But like some people can. Some people are like, that's my jam. And you're like,
Mhm.
cool, So some people can't handle Hanson and all they remember is Zimbop. And I'm like, no.
There's more. Their Christmas album's still my favorite album, like Christmas album.
Oh,
I don't know. I just
100%. Still 100% the one album I listen to on Christmas. The only one. Other than Kenny G. I'm gonna like Kenny G, the one song by Mariah Carey, and then Hanson. That's all. That's my Christmas music.
Mine is always the Nat King Cole, the rat, like the rat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because like Nat King Cole's voice is like butter. It's soothing. There's something soulful about his voice. And then Hanson, yeah, exactly.
Just saying. Y'all are sleeping on Hanson.
I know it's like years later we're living out our like teenage like
30 albums they have put out, people. Come on.
I know. They're like, and that's the thing is like sure they had like one like one big hit that kind of put them on the map, but it was just like not just that, but they continued to create, and that is it's a testament to a true like love of what they do.
Music. Yeah. And that's all, but it also comes back to they were local artists, and before Umbop came out, they had to go through with the same thing that everybody else is doing.
Mm-hmm.
They were 15, I think, because I was 14. So they were 15. Isaac was 15 when it all came out, and Zach, the drummer, was 11. He was younger. Fun fact, not that nobody asked me. Fun fact, he's the youngest musician to have a number one, and he surpassed Michael Jackson. Him and Michael Jackson are 1 and 2 for having a number one hit, for the youngest kid to have a number one hit. So I'm just saying, like, you got to give everybody an opportunity, and like you never know where it's going to lead, and you never know what it's going to be, and
don't judge it on their hits either. Like that's the other thing is like you can't judge like, oh well, like a song come out from someone that's kind of like poppy or modern, and you're like, oh, it's not my cup of tea. But it's like don't just judge them for that. Like you have to continue to be like, be an open mind about it, and be like, well, okay, I'll listen to it, because there's evolutions of people, and I think that comes through like music as well. So what music inspires you? Like that was one of our questions that I think that look at you going from intro to what kind of music really really makes your heart beat? What keeps you like on a hard day, what song is one of your favorites?
Oh, Never Let Go by Hanson, 100%. That is I will listen to that, because I used to have really bad panic attacks before I understood why I was having them. Like, they were every single day.
Yeah.
And, Never Let Go, I would listen to it just over and over and over and over again. And something about Taylor's voice, until Ed Sheeran came out, something about Taylor's voice, I was just like, and then I discovered Camden too, which if Camden sees this, now you know. But I between now it's Hanson and Camden and Ed Sheeran. But I think what continues to inspire me is just I really only listen to local music. There's just a lot of it that continues to speak how I hear and what continues to make me want to make music, and make me want to share the vulnerability if they're sharing it, and so that's kind of what I do. But yeah, I mean, Hanson really is like my go-to for sure.
What's funny is I love it. I was like, I didn't know what today's like episode was going to be like, and I think it's really cool because it's like there's that connection, and
Yeah.
I can totally relate. Like I remember growing up, the kind of music inspired me. I grew up in church, and so it's like, worship music and gospel music really inspired me. I loved like those. I was always like, I know we're not supposed to be jealous of people, but people who
Yeah.
have like really sultry voices.
Oh,
Some of one of my favorite artists, gospel artists, is her name is CC Winans, and I got to meet her once at a conference. But she like her just the depth in her voice when she sings, it's just like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, like soothing. And it's like I said, Nat King Cole, like he was
Yeah.
another artist that, and his daughter Natalie, like their voices, there's just something that goes deeper than the voice. It's like you can feel their heart in
Yeah.
that. And I think another inspirational artist that I really love is uh, well, now I blanked on her name, but it's it's Lauren Daigle.
Oh, Lord. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
like
what is it? I say, or
yeah. Oh my gosh.
it is.
So
I know
she
that's your most favorite song, but like truthfully, as coming from a songwriter, what a banger. She just
powerhouse.
powerhouse.
I'm like,
With that, and I'm like, oh, I see why that puts you on the map. Okay.
but like also even like her humility on stage
Yes,
and
that too.
the,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
way that she carries herself. I saw her in Spokane a
Yeah.
couple of years ago when she was snowed out. She played Seattle and she got snowed out
Yeah.
of Spokane. And so I had to like, we had tickets and I had to like come see her in like 2019. And I was just like, just being in that atmosphere of like as her performance, her humbleness, but
Mm,
also just the like the raw voice of
yeah.
her, and just like being able to like listen to that music and those words and just be like, "Ah, this is so
Wow.
like inspiring, like
Yeah.
uplifting." Like my heart was like full, and it was just so happy. And it's like there are people who are out there that can sing and can create music that just is like,
Touch people. Yeah. Oh my.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are definitely some of my favorite. I like the collective Maverick City, and it's a gospel collective again. So the music that inspires me, I don't listen to a lot of secular radio, um, just because like I don't know if it's just one of those things where it's like I've seen a lot of like art degrade like just the culture, not just women, but like it feels negative to me. And so
Yeah.
something that has like for my mental state, like you were saying, like, when you get overwhelmed or on a
Yeah.
hard day, like what song really speaks to you? And it's just like for me, like if I can't put something that's like gonna uplift my spirit or my head when I'm sad, like I that's where it's like I do listen to it. But I also listen to like a lot of like classic, and I love
Hmm.
um okay, so my funeral song. This is kind of sidebar, but kind of together.
Yeah.
But I told my husband, I was like, when I die, I want this song to be played at my funeral or whatever, my celebration of life.
Yeah.
And it is Queen's Who Wants to Live Forever. And I think it's off of like a track from a movie.
Great song. Yeah.
Um, and it's very eerie and like the way that it sounds and how the music is. But the vocals on it, it's like one of the lyrics is like, "Who wants to live forever when love must die?" And it's just like, I
Oh.
don't know, like you just feel like this, like, oh, wow. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just like, it doesn't necessarily inspire me, but I'm like, that's what I want played at my funeral because it's just like, love has to die, like
Yeah. Yeah.
and sometimes that happens, and it's like who wants to live with, forever when you might lose something that you love. And I don't know, like that's
Yeah.
I kind of have it's kind of a weird thought, but like I think of lyrics like that, and I think of like how how it comes across, how it hits your ears, but not just hitting your ears, but hitting your heart. How are you moved to
Yes.
emotion in that? And so it's like, like I don't the music that I listen to, like, I want it to hit my ears, but I want it to go to my heart.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like I'm disconnected from a lot of the music scene, and
Yeah.
that's why, like, when I do go to local shows, because my husband, he like, again, like, I never thought that I would marry a musician,
Yeah.
um, and so for me, like, when I go to shows and I listen to the artist, I'm like, I wanna hear what they're saying,
Yeah.
I wanna hear what's on their heart because that
Right.
to me is, like,
The
it's an
important. Yeah.
expression, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful, and I want to be able to appreciate, like, this process of, like, you went through something and you expressed yourself
Yeah.
and you were vulnerable publicly, and that's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
absolutely beautiful, and I want to experience that, and then I also want to be like,
Yeah.
thank you for, like, showing us as the hearers, like, that beautiful vulnerability and
Yeah.
that creation of how, like, even though you may be struggling through something, it inspired you to write it down and to process it and to be
Yeah.
a part of, this music that is inspiring to others and helping others
Exactly.
overcome whatever you're going through too. Like, it's
Yeah.
such a beautiful thing to take a lyric and inspire another person to, do better and to be
Yeah.
like, you're not alone. Like, it's so, I don't know. It's nice to know that you're not alone, and
Yeah.
especially in, like, music, like, it speaks through that. Just like, "Oh, wow, I can think to myself I'm not alone," and, like Lauren Daigle's song, some of her songs, there's a song she did with another artist, and it was like, "Come Back Home,"
Yeah.
and part of it is, like, how she's, like, on the run, but she needs to come home, like, her heart is, like, to come home or whatever, and I think it was, again, in a movie. Of course, like, movie songs, I don't know why. It's like, "Oh, yeah, this is the theme," but
And you
it
say you don't listen to secular music. Come on.
well, no, yeah, I
Just
mean,
kidding.
I don't, like, seek it out, but I
Yeah.
do,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like, when I hear something and I hear the lyric, I'm like, "Oh, I wanna know more," and,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wanna know what your story is. I think for me, that's the inspiration is, like,
Yeah.
there's a person behind this. I wanna know your story. Like, who are you? Like, it's
Yeah.
okay, like, I just wanna hug you. Like, I just wanna
Yeah.
appreciate you. I just wanna, show that you're loved and you're valued and you
Yeah.
matter because it's like that's how I listen to music.
Yeah.
It may not be in the secular form. Like, yeah, screamo may be people's things, but I'm just like, oh, like it hits my ears and my heart, and I'm like, this is. Are
Yeah.
you okay? Do you need
Yeah.
a hug?
Are you okay? Do we need to talk?
Or yeah, can I make
What
you
are you
something?
angry about exactly?
Like, here's a cup of tea. Like, it's
Yeah.
gonna be okay, honey.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And that's, and that's true. Like it very much is that. It's very much like my friend, um, she listens to what I call woohoo music. And it's not that, but it's what I call it. And if she hears this, she's totally gonna laugh. Um, but it's called that because she listens to all kinds of music that's all about uplifting and like girl power and
yeah,
energy. Like there's this one person, I think her name is like Peachka or something, and she's like kind of a rapper, kind of a singer, and she's just like all about like don't mess with my energy, blah blah blah. Like it's this really
yeah,
cool, like it gets you in that moment of uh like don't let anything bother you, right? And
yeah,
so uh yeah, so I just feel like that kind of stuff is really cool and like really exciting to like because you're talking about like hitting your ears, hitting your heart. Like she's all about that too. Like she just wants whatever goes in is going to is for her highest good. And
yeah,
so me, I'm just like whatever I feel like listening to, I'm just gonna listen to. I don't have
yeah,
a purpose.
yeah.
And so it's kind of weird because everybody uses for music for their own thing, and
Mhm.
so like me, it's just based on what my attitude is, or like how I'm feeling, or where I'm at. Like I'll put country on mostly at work because I live in the country, and so that's what they like to listen to. But it's all local artists, so ha ha.
Yeah.
Ha.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Ooh, who's this?" I'm like, "Well, let me tell
Yeah.
you." um, so yeah, so it's kind of cool. I really, but I like you, like I'm all about the lyrics, and
Mhm.
maybe that's because I'm a songwriter. I don't know, but like I really am all about the lyrics, and then because I'm a drummer, I'm about the drums, and I like have to have a beat,
The
you know,
rhythm.
yeah,
Mhm.
a rhythm. And then I love like classic rock because of the like, that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. So, uh, like if they have those three things, like I don't know, like "Don't Stop Believing" or something like that, where it's all
Yeah.
of one,
Yeah.
then everybody knows kind of the classic, really awesome songs like
Mhm.
that. So, um,
And they're great because of that. Like that's
exactly, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
100%.
They're famous because of that. And I think music nowadays, like even with like, the newer things that are out and like people who are independent, just putting out their heart and soul, like they skyrocket because and
Yeah.
famous, like, because I'm thinking of like Oliver Anthony and how he
Oh
like
yeah.
just posted what he was going through and how like it rang true to people and
Hmm.
just like it, yeah, it hit your ears, it hit your heart, and like it's just that purity of it.
Yeah, 100%. I really want to ask a question because I thought it was like a really great question. Okay. So I'm gonna put it up and I want you to answer it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So if music was your teacher, what
Yeah.
is one lesson that it taught you?
I know we've talked about this question and I've like been avoiding thinking about it because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's such a loaded question.
It really is.
Um,
It's a great question.
it is such a good question. I feel like there's a lot of things that could be said about this.
Yeah.
Um, if me personally, I take it back to worship. If
Mm.
music was my teacher, what one lesson did it teach me is to worship. It has to do with a lot of like what my faith is. Um, and it taught me how to surrender to my faith and to God. Um, and that sense is like one thing about worship that a lot of people like. I don't know. I feel like there's people I've dated who's like, "Oh, I hate worship music," and it's just like, well, yeah, because you're worshiping man. I'm like in my heart, it's like I'm worshiping God, and so it's like, I feel very like I have to tiptoe around this subject because like to me that
Yeah.
worship is such a personal thing for me.
It totally is. Hmm.
And I think it taught me true surrender and true appreciation and gratitude um, in my faith. Because there are moments where it's like, I can think of stories in scripture that talks about how, people worshiped from the bottom of their heart, and they recklessly abandon, worshiping naked in front of the Lord, it's just like that kind of seems strange, but it's like you're completely seen, completely loved, and completely surrendered in that act. And for
Yeah.
me, like the most
Totally.
powerful musical moments I've ever had is standing in church and being brought to my knees and crying,
Hmm.
just singing so
Yeah.
awful, like, but nobody, it's not about a performance. It's not about anything else. It's
Yeah.
about where my heart is. And so I think if music is my teacher, it is to humble myself um and surrender and to worship God and God alone. And I know we're recording on Good Friday, so it's like
Hey.
yeah, like Easter is like just around the corner, and I know that this first episode is like, not going to come out until later, but that's a big thing for me. It's just like, it's taught me to be humble, and
Yeah.
it's taught me to be able to surrender and to only bow down to God, like, and that's where I think I struggle a little bit with like, you know, being in bars and going out and, like people are like, yeah, like woo woo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I see that kind of as worship and sense. And so I have a hard time with that because I'm like, I like to be in church and being like, yeah, woohoo. I don't know. So that's personally, that's just my point of view. And teachers, music, it's just like, I just to be humble and just to be able to surrender my thoughts and worship something and be grateful for what I have and
Yeah.
point my eyes to God and say thank you. To be
Yeah.
humble and just be like, thank you for this. Thank you for this moment. Thank you for this time. Thank you for the breath in my lungs. Because there's been dark moments where it's just like I haven't been
Oh, for
even
sure.
able to just say thank you. But like why am I here? And it's just like, well, I'm here to worship, and so
Yeah.
um yeah, I think music has taught me that it's just to be humble, um and how to worship and how to be um just kind of appreciative to being here on earth and what God has for me and just to be able to be thankful for that. And I think that that's the biggest teacher because it's hard. It's hard to sing when you don't feel like it. It's hard to say thank you when you feel darkness around you. It's
Yeah.
hard to feel like it's all worth it when like when you're at the lowest point and to sing through that. One of my favorite songs is um Even When It Hurts, and I think it's a Hillsong song, but it talks about like, I will praise you even when it hurts.
Yeah.
Even when I'm practically dead, I will still praise you and say thank you for this. And I think that that is just such a big thing for me. Is it's music has brought me out of the darkest of times because of worship. Um, so that's my biggest teacher, and that's my own personal experience. um but what about you? What has music taught you, and what lessons has it taught you as as its teacher, because you've played and you've learned how to play drums and write music, and you know
Yeah.
what's the biggest lesson you've learned?
Um, Gosh, it was a loaded question for me too, even though I think it was a great one. Um, I definitely have learned how to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
It has made me definitely feel vulnerable, and has almost been my voice a couple of times.
Hmm.
The album that I'm currently gonna try and write, or currently try and record, is all about me being super vulnerable,
Mm.
and just like kind of finding myself in that vulnerability. Because I've never been, and I think what made me give up music was a long time ago was that um, I didn't think I was good enough for it. Like it was never something that I thought I was good enough to do or good enough to
Mhm.
have or good enough to be in. So
Yeah.
just supporting everybody doing what I thought they were being great, because I felt like I was like down here.
Hmm.
Um, but it did teach me that like you have to have some confidence in yourself when it comes to music and be like, yes, I can play the drums, or
Yeah.
yes, I can. Maybe I'm not the best, I'm not like Neil Peart, but I can play, I can keep it
Yeah.
a beat, you
You're
know.
gifted.
Yeah, you're gifted, yeah. So to have that word specifically, talented and gifted, to have those words come out of somebody's mouth and be like, you really are gifted at it, or you really are talented,
Hmm.
is hard for me. And so it's definitely taught me that humility, but also to have more faith in myself and to have more confidence in myself that yes, I can do it. Yes, I am able to do it. Yes, I do have a talent, you
Hmm.
know. And so for me, it's been more personal in that way. I used to play drums in a worship band for like 3 years, and it was awesome, and I loved it. And uh,
What did that time like teach you? Like in that season of
mm,
music, what was your biggest takeaway from that?
God, so that was the first time I had moved away from home. Like,
Oh,
I
okay.
moved from Seattle to California,
Mhm.
and I was in my own apartment for the first time in my own place, and I had found these people through a friend that I'd known, and the pastor was super young. He was in his like, see, I was 21. He was like 31 maybe, or 28, something like that.
Yeah.
So he was kind of as young as me, and so it was just so cool to like be a part of. He was like, "Does anybody play any instruments?" And it was kind of, they were still starting the beginning of it,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, "Yeah, I play drums." And he was like, "Oh, cool, let's see you play." And I was like, "Uh-oh, I have to prove myself." And so
Can you
yeah,
keep
so
beat? You're on the team.
yeah, you can keep a beat. We got you.
Yeah, exactly. And don't gotta sound good, but
Can't promise. But I ended up, doing really well. But yeah, I mean, it was just, playing your basic like worship songs, and also those kind of poppy ones back then. That was like 2004, 2005.
Mhm.
And so it was just like so much fun to be able to like play for people, and when you're playing drums, you get to see everybody. You're not so consumed in like singing and playing guitar and stuff. It's
Mhm.
a different type of way, and you get to like actually see what your music and your part of the song is doing for people. And sometimes it was just me playing and keeping a beat, and like people would just, while they're talking, and uh, just to be able to see people out there like worshiping, and their hands held, and them just feeling the music and feeling what I'm doing was really awesome. And
Mhm.
I've never been one to be able to like sit in church and listen very well, but when the music, like, I'll listen, but like when the music comes on, it's a whole different thing experience for me. I find it more, I'll cry, or
Mhm.
that's how I believe God talks to me, is through worship music.
It's
And
beautiful. Yeah, because it does. It feels like you're connected, and
yeah,
it's like this moment that it's like it makes it almost tangible of like
yeah,
what heaven should sound like in a
yeah,
sense, you know?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, because music is powerful.
It
It's
really is. It
and that
changes lives, and it's the one
yeah.
thing that they found in dementia patients and Alzheimer
Mhm.
patients and patients that are in a vegetative state and patients that are in coma. It's the one thing they can hear, and so, or remember or respond to. And so I think that's powerful. I think if it can transcend all of these different things that your mind can do to you.
Mhm.
It's incredible.
So being able to learn the lesson of what music really is and to be able to perform it,
Yeah,
that's it's a great it's a great teaching for it. And I love that. And I think that, for me, like, um, that's just my vision, is just to be able to talk about how we can relate to what music does for us and how it encourages us and how we can, come together and appreciate it and be grateful for it. Like, I think, you know, loving people has always been one of my things. It's like, I just want to love you. Like, I just want you to know that you are talented, you are gifted. Like, if
yeah,
there's something put in your heart that you want to do, like, I
yeah,
wanna help you. I wanna help support and love you towards that, because it's like we need people to create good things and music.
yeah,
And we need craftsmen to build stuff. We need musicians to write songs that are inspiring to others and help lift people from, sadness, or lift those heads, and, be able to say, like, I'm grateful for today. It's a good day today, or whatever. Um, and I think for me, it's like I really want, this discussion in this podcast, like with whomever we come across, like just to be able to help encourage the people who are in those supporting roles, because supporting roles take a lot of weight. And there's not a lot of people who will come in and help relieve some of that weight,
Yeah.
And so I think that to be able to encourage people who are playing those roles and playing that support is huge and crucial, but also being like, you're gifted, you're talented, what you're doing is important. Even though it doesn't feel important, you may not be getting the recognition, but it is still good. And we all go through hard things, and you have people in your corner rooting for you and saying,
Yeah, exactly.
it's doable. You can do this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what's important to me too, is, being able to just support people in a different way. I'm able to support the artists with my other show, and with this one, I really want to support that back end that people don't really see or really know about, and give them encouragement and give them love too, because it is important. These artists can't do what they do without that, without whoever it is behind them, their friends, their significant others, their parents, whatever it is, like the fans, I don't know, but like we'll get into that later. But like that's what I want to support, is those people that are supporting the artists and supporting being able to love on those people and encouraging them to keep doing what they're doing.
Right. Exactly. And if it's being a mom or being, cooking, cleaning, being a housewife, or whatever it is, like, just to be able to say, you know what, you're doing it and you're doing it good. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, everybody, this has been awesome and fun, and I hope you guys continue to stick with us. We have so much planned, and we have so much more to go, and lots of artists that are going to come on, and their other significant others, and more discussions about stuff just like in depth of what we really want to get into with this podcast. And I hope you'll follow along with that. And we just appreciate you listening. And be sure to follow us on Instagram. We also have a YouTube. That's where, if you're listening to this, we'll also have it on YouTube. So if you want to see what we look like while we're talking, you can go there and see that, if that's easier for you. But we appreciate you always. And take it away. Oops, take it away.
Oh yeah, thanks. Thanks for sitting at the table and having a conversation with us. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that it brought something to you. If it inspired you in some way, just let us know. You could say thank you, or show your gratitude towards anybody that we had talked about today on the show. Any bands that you really like, or if you want to join the conversation and the discussion, you can just write a little post on our Instagram or YouTube and, say, hey, this is my favorite band. This was my first concert. Yeah. Answer the same questions. Like, what inspired you to be, to listen? How did you come across us? Yeah. Just let us know.
Exactly.
And we'll point something out later too. And just, be like, hey, give it a little shout out for you guys. Say that we care for you and thank you for watching. Thanks for supporting local artists.
100%. Yeah. Thank you for supporting them. Thank you for being there for them. Thank you for being there for us. Mm-hmm. And we can't wait for more to come. And just comment below, or you can DM us. We're pretty humble chicks, so we'll definitely respond. And either on the Instagram or on YouTube, or you can email us at Lady Bandtits Podcast.
The Lady Bandtits Podcast
at gmail.com.
That whole thing. All together.
So we appreciate you again, and thank you. And recommend us to your friends, and get us out there if you think there's anybody that would like to hear about our situation. And that's my little kitten. I almost escaped without having no cats in. Almost.
At the end.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye.